in your hundreds, because it is an important evening, lots to tell you, lots to take in, and it's really gratifying to see that so many of you are here. I'll also introduce my colleague Margaret Cumming, who's deputy here at the school, and Joanne Allen, who works for Skills Development Scotland, SDS. So both Margaret and Joanne and myself will be here after the presentation, which will take about half an hour. So we'll take questions from the floor that you might want to share at the end, but if you wanted to have a private conversation, ask some private questions, then we'll stay around for a little while, so we can hopefully answer your questions as we go along, but if we can't, then we'll stay. So this is a really important evening. It's the first time really that young people have been able to make some choices about which subjects they'd like to study, and we'll explain how our curriculum works and where that leads, and we'll fast forward right into potentially into S6 so you can see the bigger picture of where this might lead in terms of choices. And the good thing about the curriculum, particularly in this country, in Scotland, is that it's very flexible. And it doesn't stop in school either. So when we talk about, and I'm sure Joanne will say the same thing, when we talk about the curriculum, we're thinking outside the box a little bit. Things are changing really fast. This isn't just about making choices potentially that you will have in school, but it may well be a crossover into the world of work while you're still at school, or into college while you're still at school, right up to potentially HNC level while you're still at school, and those things are available to us now. So I think it's important to lay some of those foundations today with you. Although you're only in second year and only going into third year, you are, I hope, starting to think about choices that will affect you way beyond next year. Just to let you know that we are filming this, but it's only me that's being filmed, because we recognise obviously that some people can't make it. It seems like the whole of us two are here today, so potentially not. But if people can't make it, then obviously they can catch up with it on the website. So we talk, excuse me, about the broad general education. I'm going to qualify some of these, some of the terminology, because it may be the first time you've seen this, or you've heard it vaguely, or if there's anything that you're not sure of, then we can explain it. And we talk about the first 3 years of education in Scotland as being the broad general education. So young people here are in the second year, as it stands, of the broad general education. So that's the junior part, if you like, potentially of their career in school. So we're coming up to a third of the way through. Going into S3, then, although the 2 years have been quite similar up to now, the range of subjects has been quite full. Looking ahead to next year, there are 2 subjects that have to be studied. You have to do maths and you have to do English, but you can select 6 other subjects. So going into next year, you're moving from a very broad range of subjects into 8 subjects. Now, it may be that they come from similar areas, some of them. We do have an open, free choice, but we do obviously have a caveat that we would say that you want to keep your options open. You want as broad a general education going into third year as possible. So it may well be that you take 2 sciences, possibly. We wouldn't advocate taking 3. But you want, I think, at least to take 1. I think it would be wise to take 1 science and 1 social subject. You'll see what I mean as we go through the presentation. So the curriculum model looks like this. It's not very easy to read even up close, but the top 2 bits are the bits that you're in at the moment, which, if you remember back a couple of years, when I was talking to you at primary school, we showed you a typical day. You do literally do everything in the first 2 years. You do a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of art, a bit of drama, a bit of music, all the social subjects, all the sciences. So you're doing everything. To squash that into 32 periods is quite a feat. So there is quite a change next year. So you can choose now that if you've done art, drama, music, and actually art's my thing, but drama and music are not, you don't have to do all 3. You can do 1, or you can do 2. So you have a fairly open choice. You do have to do PE, you do have to do PSE, you do have to do RNE, but you have a number of choices that you can take. So this is the whole curriculum model. The BGE, as I've been saying, is the first 3 years. We're not closing the door, and I think it's important to say that. If you go into next year choosing 6 subjects, we're not closing the door to anything. But I do say that with a bit of hesitation, because obviously if you decide at the end of this year to not do history but to do geography, and at the end of 3rd year going into your S4 for your National 5s or National 4s, and you think, actually, I did geography, but actually I really want to go back to history, that door's not shut. But you have to bear in mind that you won't have done history since S2. It's not impossible to go back, and we can't close the door, we shouldn't close the door to that happening. So, but you do need to be careful. So whatever you choose this year, most likely will be the subjects that you will take to National 5, and most likely will be among the range of subjects that you might consider for higher. So this really is a really important set of choices. Because it does narrow. As you go into the senior phase, you move into a fewer number of choices, and then if you go into, that's in S4, and no, I don't know how to stop it, I do apologise. If you go, we talk about the senior phase being S4, 5 and 6 now. So it used to be that we talk about seniors being S5 and 6, we don't anymore. We talk about the senior phase as S4, 5 and 6. In fact, we timetable S4, 5 and 6 together now. So some subjects you will have S4, 5 and 6 in the same class. Now that's a good thing, I think, from lots of points of view. Not least that some subjects can't run unless you have S4, 5 and 6 together. For example, my subject is Spanish. Now, we may get half a dozen from S4 who want to do it, but we can get half a dozen from S6 who want to do it, then we can run a class. We can't run it with 6. So that's what we're working towards. So in S1, 2, as I said, you guys have been, you're busy. You're doing lots, and you're doing all the subjects, you're trying all the different things, and we think by now you're forming an idea of what you like and what you don't like. And you're starting to really define what you think that you might like to do. However, moving into S3, you've still got the scope, and we think you should have the scope and you should choose subjects this way, that you are trying to keep your options open in terms of all the curricular areas if you can. Not everybody would do that, but I think it'd be a wise thing to consider a subject from each of those curricular areas that are on the board. In S3, you can see that it narrows, and it's probably easy when you see it that way, that you're looking at maths and English. I'm afraid there's no getting away from maths and English in S3, nor in S4. And then you make 6 choices, and as I've been saying up to now, from a broad range of curriculum areas as possible. So as we look at this is the course choice sheet. So you will get this very soon. You notice we're starting at subject 3 because subjects 1 and 2 are maths and English, so that's why we started subject 3. And we're asking you to choose, and we spent years sort of developing this, but this is now where we are. We would like you to choose across the board for 1 from each sort of bubble. And the course choice sheet is quite unique. Normally it's in columns. For you guys, you get a unique sheet with bubbles. So you need to choose 1 subject from each bubble. However, you'll see that 3 of the bubbles is a little bit bigger. And 4 of the bubbles are a little bit bigger. So you'll have to choose 1 subject that you would like as your first choice. But just in case it doesn't work out, we need you to put a second choice as well. So you need to choose 2. You have to have a backup choice as well. So those bubbles look a bit like that. Now the most significant change to that, which I'm very glad about, is that we're looking to introduce Spanish into the school because our new principal teacher of languages is a Spanish specialist. as am I, so I'm very keen. So the option there is there now to study Spanish from S3, which we think is a good thing. What you will work out, I think, is that languages are represented in 2 of those boxes, creative arts are represented in 2 of those boxes, sciences are represented in 2 of those boxes. The option to do 2 of similar things, if that makes sense. So you could do 2 languages, you could do 2 creative subjects, you could do 2 sciences. That would be our recommendation going into next year. If you have a particular leaning towards something, we would advocate that you can choose up to 2. So that's why French, German and Spanish appear in 2 of those, and you'll see as you look across, the biology will be there twice, the chemistry will be there twice, and so forth. So we're asking you to think quite clearly about a range of things, but if you have a particular leaning towards a curriculum area, there is the option to do 2 of those subjects. So back to those 4 boxes, which are slightly different. We need to have the numbers to run these courses, so if we only have 2 people who want to do Spanish, it's not going to run. So we need to be clear right from the outset that there need to be the numbers to be able to run these courses. So just in case, we do ask you to put a second choice as well as a first choice. So it's really important that you do that. So from each bubble, you're choosing 2 subjects. So these are the curriculum areas that I've been talking about. They're represented across the board there. You can see that actually English fits in the languages faculty, but slightly different. So that's a compulsory subject. Maths sits on its own. But if you're talking about languages, you can do French and or German and or Spanish. So you can do 2 of those 3. Expressive arts, 2 out of 3 if you want to. Health and well-being, you can see there's a number of choices in there. Sciences, you can see what they are. Social subjects, geography, history, modern studies, and technologies, business management, computing science, design and manufacturing, graphics. So, if you look ahead 1 leap from this year, you go from 8 subjects to 6. And it varies from school to school at the moment, and it's been successful for the school in terms of the percentage of young people gaining 5 or more. That's probably the benchmark for a national 5. Doing 6 is served as well, so that's where we are. We're not closing the door to 7. Some schools do 7. There's no school in Fife that does 8. There's 2 in Edinburgh that do 8. But we do 6. So going into S4, you'd have to narrow those 6 choices that you're making down to 4. Into S5, and you make 5 choices, and that could be any combination. Not everybody does 5 hires. Some do 4, some do 3, some do 2. But you'd have to make 5 choices. You have to fill your columns. And when you get to S6, you might do as few as 3. And if the 3 advanced hires, for example, is more than enough for anybody. So in those cases, in S6, you have study time. So every S6 will have at least 1 column, and some have 2. But that will depend on what choices. You can see as you go through the school, you're actually doing fewer subjects. The caveat with S5 is you do 5 choices, but you do them for more time in the week. So you do 5 subjects for 6 periods a week, whereas in S4 you do 6 subjects for 5 lessons a week. The choices that you make in S3 you'll do for 3 lessons a week. So you start to intensify as you go through the school. You spend more time doing the subjects that you really like. This is a sort of flow chart of where things might go as we move through, and I know we're looking ahead a little bit, but I think it's important to mention these things. I put these in because it is important that you see that there are other things other than National 4s and 5s. So we have NPAs, National Progression Awards. We have FAs, which are Foundation Apprenticeships. So there may well be, as I was saying right at the beginning, the path may not be as conventional, perhaps, as you and I might have had in terms of standard grades and then hires and then that's that, or advanced hires. But there are other qualifications that we run. There are other qualifications that are run in other places. So it's worth, again, mentioning that light of where we're going. So, things to remember, and there's a number of things, really obvious things that you might be thinking of when you're wondering, what do I do? Obviously, it would be an advantage if you enjoyed the subject, that would be good. If you were good at the subject, you had an ability within the subject, that would also be a good reason for choosing. The progress within the subject, in terms of where that can go, in terms of is there a higher, can you progress to higher advanced time maybe, potentially? And also, as we were saying a number of times, that you're not putting all your eggs into one particular basket. It's very early to be doing that. Some of you may know exactly where you want to go, exactly what you want to do as a career, but even still, a broad set of choices would be something that we would really be promoting. However, and this does come up, and young people surprisingly do make or suggest choices because their pal has taken it, or that they don't like the teacher. You don't know what teacher you're going to get next year, or who you're going to get next year. Well, may not be, probably won't be the teacher you have now. So try not to make the choice based on, I don't like him and I don't like her. It's about you, it's about your subject. I mean, it may go hand in hand. You don't like the teacher, you don't like the subject, but if you do like the subject, think again about the fact that it's about you and it's about the subject and not the teacher. And the young people, it's you. You have to do, you're the ones who are going to have to do all the studying. You're going to have to sit in the lessons. So try, you know, your parents and your carers and your aunties and your uncles and your friends and friends of the family are there to give you good advice. Of course, they are teachers the same. But ultimately, it's about your choices. It's about what you want to do, and your family will be there for you, whatever you choose. But it's really important that you don't feel pressured to do something, because that's what Auntie so-and-so did. It's about you and your choices. No subject is easy. And please let's dispel that myth now. It's not. There's no subjects out there that are any easier than any other subject. They're all valid. They're all testing and challenging. So there aren't any easy choices. You might find a subject that is easier than the next person, and that's a different matter altogether. But at the end of the day, as I say, you have to do all the work. In terms of you guys as parents and carers, similar kinds of questions really, and we're trying to tease out what your young person enjoys, what they come home, and I know you might not get a huge response to the question, how was today? Was it, you have a good day? Might be the response that you get, but you must have an idea, I would have thought, about how things are going, which subjects are going well. You should, I hope, have an idea of progress and what your young person is good at. Things that happen outside of school might be influential. Things that your young person is involved in might be an influence on what they might choose. There might be a suitability in terms of the way that they work, the way that they think, the logic that they have, the way that they study that might suit them better. There are subjects like that. Your young person may well have post-school ideas about what they want to do, the career they want to go into. And it's important, I think, if you are thinking that way, and I do some pupil voice things every week, a few times a week. Some young people definitely do know where they want to go at this stage. And it's important if you're in that position that you're working it backwards, that you're starting to use what we have in terms of careers, in terms of going onto websites, looking at potentially even university and working it backwards. What do they want? What do employers want? What qualifications do I need to do that course? And working it backwards to this point and thinking about the subjects that might suit that. There are some myths out there about the level of maths that you might need or the level of English you might need to do certain courses, and it is very worth just finding out exactly what you need. Which is the last point there in terms of finding out about courses and qualifications. So who can you talk to? Well, the subject teachers, there's a parent evening coming up. I'll put the dates on the board in just a minute. Guidance today, your young people have a one-to-one meeting with guidance in the next week or two. Senior leadership team, we're here if you need us. Well, very happy to talk about these kinds of things. STS have a base in the school. We're very, very lucky. We have a great team in school. Joanne and her colleague Rona are here every day of the week, I think. So there's a chance to drop in, make an appointment, and talk to STS with or without parents, I think. With them. And as I was saying before, in terms of courses in college and university, the admissions officers really are the key people. And they know about their courses, they know about the entry requirements and the possible routes into college and university. And I know, again, we're talking about very young people, but you are thinking, I hope, slightly ahead, and that may be somebody you want to talk to. And they're very good, they really are very good. Again, it's important to note that there are no university courses that potentially require 3 sciences at National 5. There may well be some university courses that eventually include maths, and maths is seen as a science, but you may need science at higher level potentially. But one of the things you said at the beginning, S6 and indeed S5, there are opportunities to pick up qualifications at National 5 level and higher level, as well as advanced higher in S6. S6 is a brilliant year for just catching up, mopping up, adding subjects that you might need at that particular level. You get at least 2 bites in S5 and S6 to get what you need potentially to go on to the next stage. And if you don't, there are other routes. College is a great place to go if you reach the end of school at S6 and you still haven't got what you need. You can still catch up by college. So at the moment, what's happening? Well, pupils are getting some support in PSE from SDS, which is really welcome. There is an S2 Parents' Evening on Thursday the 12th of March, so we're starting fairly early with this. We're just flagging this up. The timeline is longish, but you will have an opportunity to talk through what your young person is thinking with the subject teachers themselves, which I hope you'll find very useful in terms of being very honest about potential for doing that subject beyond next year. So that is the timeline, and I'll make these slides available tomorrow, and you can see this for yourselves. We've got this evening. We start next week with an assembly as well, so we get all the young people together next week, and we'll talk to them directly about course choices. You'll get the latest tracking information in about a week's time on DidBook, and a week after that we'll be in the same hall, or you will be talking to subject teachers. A week after that you have your one-to-one meetings with your guidance teachers. Now again, SDS will be available on that day. We normally have them in here now, so you come down here and individual tables are set up and you wait until you're called. But if you wanted to talk to SDS on that day, you can. And ongoing, as we've mentioned, discussions in PSE with guidance and with SDS. So there's quite a lot of input happening over the next 2 to 3 weeks, and I haven't even mentioned the ongoing background input from yourselves as well, and discussions at home, which obviously will go on all the time. So I'm going to sit down for a minute, and I'm going to ask Joanne to speak for 2 minutes.